Are you dreaming of teaching English abroad but worried about passing Teach Abroad interviews? My list of 10 common Teach Abroad interview questions and tips will give you the confidence you need to pass those interviews and set off on your Teach Abroad adventure. The first step for preparing for a Teach Abroad interview is doing some research and looking up information on the school or company that you'll be doing the interview with. I recommend looking up information on the following: what teaching qualifications they require, what ages you'll teach, specific curriculum you'll use, the type of school, public, private, an academy, a preschool, a language school, etc., teacher responsibilities, pay and benefits information. The best way to find this information is to take a look at the school's website, see if there's any online reviews, and take a look at social media accounts and read through the comments. Once you have a good idea of the answers to all of your research, then you're ready to start preparing these 10 common questions for Teach Abroad interviews. Teach Abroad question number 1. Could you tell me about yourself? While this question is often dreaded, it's actually a great opportunity to show that you've done your research and you're a great fit for the position. My first Teach Abroad interview tip is to show you are interested in the culture of the country where the school is located. Have you always been interested in its cuisine, its history, or traditions? My second tip is to share a glimpse of your journey as a teacher. Share what inspired you to become a teacher or what you like sharing with your students. My third tip is to talk about specific interactions that you've had with the age groups you'll potentially teach. For example, if you're interviewing for a position to teach high school students, make sure you mention anything that you've done with this age group in the past. Could be coaching, mentoring, tutoring. It doesn't have to be teaching, but they just want to know that you're comfortable with this age group. And my last tip is to mention something that makes you unique. You want the interviewer to remember you. Are you unique as a teacher or unique as a person? You want to stand out during the interview process. Teach Abroad interview question number 2, what qualifications do you have? Since you've done your research, you should be able to tell the school or company exactly what they need to hear. Make sure you know what education and teaching credentials are required, as well as which passport is required before you apply for the job. You'd be surprised at all the emails that I get from people who are asking for help with the interview process, and they're wondering why they're not getting hired when they're actually applying for different positions that they're not actually eligible for. So make sure that you check your eligibility before applying and interviewing for any jobs. My first Teach Abroad interview tip is that common qualifications for teaching abroad are a TEFL certificate and or a teaching license and a bachelor's degree in any subject with a degree in English or education preferred. If you don't have a TEFL certificate yet, then you can watch this video on how to choose a TEFL certificate. My second tip is in some countries it's possible to teach abroad without a bachelor's degree, but degrees are usually preferred. If you don't have a degree, I recommend making sure you have some previous experience and a level 5 TEFL certificate. And my last tip is if you aren't a native English speaker, then you may be asked to provide a certificate of your English level like IELTS, Cambridge, or TOEFL. Check to see which English exams are required in the countries you are interviewing for. If you'd like to learn how to teach abroad step by step with a TEFL, including setting up your CV, finding jobs abroad, and budgeting to move abroad, then get on the waitlist for my course, which is coming in early 2022. Teach Abroad interview question number 3, do you have any previous experience teaching English? If you have any previous teaching experience, you can give a highlights reel of your students' performance and include any achievements or leadership roles that you had. Keep this short and sweet and only include relevant information. So what do you do if you don't have any previous teaching experience? My first tip is you want to mention any experience you have related to working with the age group in question. For example, if you are interviewing to teach elementary students, you could talk about previous experience mentoring, tutoring, coaching, working as a camp counselor, etc. with this age group. My second tip is that if you haven't held a job like this, then I recommend doing 3 to 6 months of volunteering with the age you'd like to teach before applying to teach abroad. You can also teach online while waiting to teach abroad. If you need extra help getting started teaching abroad or online, then fill out my survey, which is linked down below. Teach Abroad interview question number 4. How would you teach present perfect to your students? While it may not be this exact question, you could be asked questions related to your language awareness and teaching methods. Think of it as a mini lesson plan. They might ask you how you would teach a certain verb tense or contrasting verb tenses or even a vocabulary word. My first tip is, since this question is all about thinking on your feet, don't worry about your answer being perfect. But it is important to have an idea of what activities, methods, or visuals you could use to teach basic tenses or vocabulary. I like to have 5 to 7 tried and true activities in my back pocket at all times, and this comes in handy not only during these Teach Abroad interviews, but also in class as well. My second tip is the interviewer might ask you something like, what's the best way to teach English? Which is kind of a trick question because it depends on your students' level, goals, and the curriculum. The best way to teach English is to engage your students with a variety of educational activities to help them learn and practice the language, understand when to use it correctly, and gain confidence. And my last tip is always keep in mind what age group and level you are teaching. Teaching high school students and adults is very different from teaching young learners. Teach Abroad interview question number 5. What do you know about insert country name here? Teaching abroad is more challenging than teaching in your own country because you'll be working in a new culture, educational system, and probably a new climate as well. This can lead to culture shock and stressed out teachers. A good school will want to support you and make sure that you're a good match to work in their country and school. My first tip is to know your basics about the country. The kind of government, the religions, famous places and people, national holidays, and food. They want to make sure that you've actually done your research and know what's going on in their country if you're planning on moving and teaching there. My second tip is to let the interviewer know that you're interested in trying new things and learning about the country and its people. Being open-minded is essential when teaching abroad. Teach Abroad interview question number 6. What are your strengths and weaknesses as a teacher? This is another question that can be difficult to answer, so I recommend taking some time to really think through your answer before you start interviewing. I've been asked this question several times during Teach Abroad interviews, so it's definitely a popular one. My first tip is to answer this question through the lens of a teacher. What strengths should an ideal teacher have, and which one match your strengths? Limit your strengths to 3. My second tip is, when it comes to weaknesses, choose 1 or 2. Also, think of how you might take steps to overcome these weaknesses. Teach Abroad interview question number 7. How do you deal with difficult students? With this question, the school or company wants to know about your behavior management style. This is going to change depending on the age of the learners. My routines and expectations for my adult ESL students are very different from my routines and expectations for my 5-year-old ESL students. My first tip is to use examples to explain how you've dealt with difficult students in the past, focusing on the results of your strategy. What do you think works well for you and why? Be able to show this through an example. My second tip is, if you don't have much teaching experience, I recommend researching different behavior management techniques and theories to have an idea before stepping into the classroom. Teach Abroad interview question number 8. Why are you leaving your current job? This may be one of the easiest questions to answer during your Teach Abroad interview. Most people are leaving their current jobs to move to another country, experience a new culture, and add international work experience to their resume. I mean, you can't really argue with that. Teach Abroad interview question number 9. What are your salary expectations? This is another question where previous research is essential. You need to be aware of what salaries are being offered to foreign teachers in your country, city, and hopefully school. My first tip is that if you're lucky, you'll be able to access salary information on websites like Glassdoor. Number 2, know the cost of living in the city where the school is located. You can use the website numbeo.com to create a sample budget for rent, utilities, food, transportation, and other basics, and compare it with the salaries quoted in the job ad or during the interview. My third tip is that if you are asked what salary you expect, always offer a range and expect the employer to come in on the low end. And my last tip is if you aren't able to negotiate your salary, negotiate with your benefits. Try to leverage more vacation days, accommodation, paying for your visa, etc. Give this video a like if you'd like me to create a video on what questions you should be asking during your Teach Abroad interviews and how to negotiate your pay and benefits. Teach Abroad interview question number 10. Do you have a sample lesson plan prepared? Even if it's not advertised as part of the interview process, some schools will have you either show them a sample lesson plan or teach a sample lesson plan. You may be able to teach a group of students, or you may be teaching the interviewer and pretending that they're a student. Either way, you should have 2 different lesson plans prepared, one for a lower level and one for a higher level, and have a 10-minute and 30-minute version of each lesson plan, just so that you're really prepared in case they ask you to teach something. My first tip is to make copies of your lesson plan available for the interviewer in hard copy format if you're interviewing in person, and email if you are interviewing online. My second tip is I recommend creating your lesson plan and materials in Canva. Canva is a graphic design app with millions of images, videos, and templates that you can use to create worksheets, presentations, and more. To find out how I use Canva to create my teaching materials, you can check out my Canva Tutorials for Teachers playlist. I hope this video helps you prepare for your Teach Abroad interviews. The more you practice and prepare, the more likely you are to land your dream job when teaching abroad. Don't forget to fill out my survey, which is linked down below, and leave me a comment if you have any questions about teaching abroad. You can find me on Instagram at ESLTeacher365, and if you'd like to support my channel, you can like, subscribe, and share to help other teacher travelers. To learn my top tips for your Teach Abroad resume, check out this video next. Happy teaching!